These are the 8th grade notes over the concept of slope-intercept form. Now last week we covered point slope and standard form, and this is a review of the final form of graphing, the one we tend to use most often, slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form by its name tells you exactly what it's giving you. It's giving you a slope and an intercept. Which intercept? It's actually giving you the y-intercept, where the graph crosses over the y-axis. Slope-intercept form, as you can see from the introduction there, is defined by the form y equals mx plus b. M is going to represent the slope, and we've seen that before, so that's nothing new. B is a new idea to us. B represents the y-intercept, and x and y are always going to say x and y. Now there's two things you're going to be able to, or need to do here today. You're going to need to be able to graph in slope-intercept form, and you're going to have to write a slope-intercept equation. To graph in slope-intercept form, what you're going to do is you're going to look at that b number first. We're actually going to look at the end of the equation first. And that number is, again, the y-intercept, where the graph crosses over the y-axis. However it looks is wherever you're going to put your dot on the y-axis. So if it says minus 3, you're going to put a dot on the y-axis. Again, that's the one that goes up and down at negative 3. If it says plus negative 7, you're going to put a dot on the y-axis at negative 7. If it says plus 6, you're going to put a dot on the y-axis at 6. Then what you'll do after you do that is you'll look at the slope. Now the slope, when it's written in form, is whatever happens to be right after the equal sign. Slope is always a fraction, as you know. It has to be represented in rise over the run. So if it's not a fraction, you're going to go ahead and write it as a fraction. And once you write it as a fraction, then all you have to do is from the point you just made, the intercept, from the point you just made, you're going to rise and run from that point according to the slope. Whatever the top number is how much you're going to move up if it's positive from that point, or down if it's negative. And then the bottom number, the run, is going to tell you to move to the right how many jumps. Wherever you land is where you put your second dot. You lay that second dot down and connect the dots, and that's it. And that's all you have to do to graph in slope-intercept form. The other thing you're going to have to do today is write the actual slope-intercept equation. They're going to give you a graph, and from that graph, you're going to need to be able to write the equation. So the order is not really all that dramatically different from what we just did. First thing you want to do is identify the b value in the equation. To find the b value in the equation, what you're going to do is identify where the graph crosses over the y-axis. So you change b into wherever the graph goes over the y-axis. After you do that, then you're going to find another point on the line. Put your pencil down on another point that's on the line, not the one that goes through the y-axis. Wherever you land, you're going to count the rise and the run to get you to that point from the y-intercept point. And that represents your slope. So you change m, your slope, into whatever value you find there. Again, probably a fraction unless it's a horizontal or vertical line. Plug in that number and you've got your equation. So let's go ahead and look at worked out examples of both of these here. We'll start with the first question. It says y equals 3/2 x minus 6. So what it says here is we're going to take and plot b. Now we look at the end of the equation here. It says minus 6. So I'm going to go to the y-axis and put a dot at negative 6. Again, the first dot always goes on the y-axis. It's the y-intercept. If you don't have a dot on the y-axis in slope-intercept form, you're doing something wrong. All right, after you go through and plot that b number, again, which is the number at the end when it's written in the correct form, then you go ahead and go back to the slope. The slope is what's right after the equal sign. Slope here says 3/2. Well, remember, slope represents rise over run. So what that says there is I'm going to rise 3 and run 2. Where am I rising 3 and running 2 from? I rise 3 and run 2 from the point I've already made. So I made that point there at negative 6. That means I'm going to rise 3 units, go up 3 units. If it was negative, I'd go down. And then run 2 units, go to the right 2 units. And that's where my second dot lands. And it only takes 2 points to graph a line, so we connect our points. And there's the graph of 3/2 x minus 6. Now in number 2, as you can see, they've already started with the line on the graph here for us. And what they're asking us to do is to write the slope-intercept equation. So again, the order is not really any dramatically different than what we did in question number 1. The first thing you want to do is identify b. where the graph goes over the y-axis. Well, as you can see here from the x that's on the number line, the graph goes over the y-axis here at 3. So the b value here for question number 1 is 3. So in y equals mx plus b form, I've got to change b into 3. Then I have to go ahead, as they're talking about in step 2 there, and find my slope. My slope is my rise and my run to get from one point to the other. Well, we've already got this point. I'm going to figure out how much it's going to take me to get over here to this point. Well, to go from this point to this point, we're always going to go left to right, just like we read a paper. All right? I count how many times I'm going to move up, which is my rise. In this case, it's 2 jumps up. So the rise is 2. Then I'm going to calculate my run. My run is how much I'm going to go to the right to get to that point. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps to the right. So my rise over my run is equal to 2 over 4. Well, 2 over 4, as you know, is a reducible fraction. 2 over 4 reduces down to 1/2. So they go ahead and change m in the equation to the reduced form of 2/4, which is 1/2. And we write our final solution, y equals 1/2 x plus 3.